Hello, my dear friends. Come sit with me a moment. Tonight I want to tell you what happened after that big Ha Long Bay trip. When Ms. Diep came home to her tiny hill house with salt still on her skin, and village gossip started asking whether a poor mother like her even deserves to see the sea. If you've ever come home from somewhere beautiful to a very ordinary kitchen, you already know where Miss Diep's heart was the day they got back from the sea.
The trip was
The
long.
bus left them on the dusty village road.
Are you excited
The
to
air
see
smelled
Grandma?
like dry earth and smoke again,
Yes,
not
look,
salt.
there she is.
The girls were sticky and
Grandma!
tired, but their eyes were shining. Aunt Hai stood at the gate. "Well," she said, "did the sea behave itself?" Anna
Look,
threw her
girls,
arms
we are
wide.
finally here.
"Big water!"
It's so beautiful,
she shouted.
Mother.
And look,
Rockin'
there is
water.
Grandma waiting for us.
Boathouse! Nai hugged her notebook. It was huge, like the sky fell down and became water. Ms. Diep walked straight past them, checking the gate latch, the basket corner, the new metal hook James had put in. She needed to be sure the house was still hers. "Your dog is still loud. Your rooster is still stupid. Your house did not grow legs and walk away," Aunt Hai said. "You can breathe." "I am breathing," Mrs. Diep answered. But it sounded like she wasn't convinced. That night, after the girls slept, she and James sat at their old table. Between them lay the envelope, their savings. Roof money, medicine money, in case everything goes wrong money. He opened it, fanned the worn bills out. The stack was thinner now, not gone, but you could see the bottom. "You see," she said softly. "One trip, and this is what's left." He didn't argue. "Yes, this is what's left." She watched the money like it might leak through the wood. "Tomorrow I go back to the hill," she said. "I'll pick faster. My back will complain. It will live." James studied her face. "And your heart?" he asked. "Did it live?" She remembered Anna at the harbor rail, that cold rush of fear, and later, the girls asleep on the boat under the stone islands. "My heart is confused," she said. "Happy, scared, angry, all in one pot." He smiled a little. "Sounds like a heart that still works." The next morning, she was already halfway up the hill before the sky was fully light. Her feet knew every stone. For a while, the sea felt like a strange dream she'd borrowed, and now had to give back. Up there, life hadn't changed. Women talked prices and weather. Fruit thumped into baskets. Then one woman said, just loud enough, "I heard she went to Ha Long." "Who?" another asked. "The single mom by the old well," the first said. "The one with the city man. She took the kids, boat, caves, everything." "Ha Long," someone else snorted. "That's expensive." Aunt Hai snorted. "Her eyes are not cheaper than yours. She has the right to see the sea." "I didn't say she didn't," the first woman answered. "I just wonder who paid. Money doesn't fall from trees." Another voice, sharper. "Maybe it fell from an office in the city. Some people have very generous fathers." Nobody said James's father's name. They didn't have to. All the while, Ms. Diep's hands kept moving. Fruit into basket. But that warm bit of Ha Long she'd brought back inside her shrank. "People will always talk," Aunt Hai muttered near her. "If they ever stop, they'll choke." "Let them," Miss Diep said. It didn't sound strong. It sounded like a woman trying to be. At the market, the gossip had arrived before she did. Gossip travels fast. As she set out her fruit, 2 women watched her stall. "I saw that shirt in a photo," one said. "My cousin was at the harbor. took pictures of a boat. There they were, all four. The little one almost fell in, the other added, almost pleased. Imagine if she had. She didn't, Miss Diep replied quietly. We held her. The first woman smiled, sweet and sharp. I'm glad, she said. It would be a shame after someone spent so much to take you there. We spent, Ms. Diep answered, from these hands, from our hill. Of course, the woman murmured. Hills are very rich now. The laugh that followed wasn't kind. Tam came then, ledger under his arm. He weighed her fruit, gave her a fair price, said nothing. Sometimes silence is the nicest thing a man can offer. When she walked home that evening, coins in her pocket, her shoulders were tired from more than work. She was carrying a new idea, that joy, for people like her, always needed to defend itself. At dinner, little Anna started up again. Big water, she said. Rock, boathouse. This time, for the first time, Miss Diep put her hand gently on her daughter's arm. Talk softer, little bird, she said. We're home now. Not everyone needs to hear our stories. Nai stared at her plate. Anna blinked, confused and hurt, and the whole room felt just a bit smaller. That's how the sea began to shrink. Not out there, but in here, inside their little house. Later that night, when the girls were asleep, the house felt too quiet. James sat at the table, mending a tiny hole in Anna's rabbit shirt. Miss Diep lined up the day's coins, one by one, like she was counting her choices. You told her to be quiet, he said finally. Yes, because of what people said. On the hill, at the market. Because of what they'll keep saying, she answered. Who took you? Who paid? Who do you think you are going to see places like that? He nodded slowly. When I was a boy, he said, my family could buy any trip, but every nice thing came with a test. Did we look important enough? Did we stay in the right room? Joy always had to prove itself. He looked at her. Do you know what felt poor in that world? He asked. She shook her head. Joy was guilty, he said softly. That was the real poverty. She sat back, tired clear down to the bone. I've been poor in money my whole life, she said. Now I'm poor in time and in back. I don't want to be poor in joy too. Then don't give this away, he told her. They already took a basket out of your yard. Don't hand them your sea as well. She traced a crack in the table. Tomorrow they'll talk again, she said. Yes, he answered. But tomorrow, you choose what your girls hear from you. And she did. Next morning, the same women were in the same spots. The only thing different was how Miss Diep walked up, still tired, but with her head just a little higher. So, one called out quickly, how is life as a tourist? Very fancy now? Miss Diep set her basket down. It was noisy, she said. It was beautiful. I was afraid the whole time. And I paid for every minute with the same hands that pick these fruit. Her voice was calm, not sharp. The sound of someone saying her own name. The first woman opened her mouth, then closed it. The second glanced at those rough fingers and then at her own. You must have strong hands, she muttered. No, Miss Diep said. Just stubborn ones. Tam passed behind them, hiding a little smile. The air loosened. Gossip didn't vanish, but it had less room to bite. That evening, after homework and rice and the usual fuss over who got the bigger piece of fish, Nai brought her notebook to the table. Mom, she said, half shy, can we put some of the sea on the wall? The sea? Her mother asked. My drawings, Nai said, and Anna's. so we don't forget we saw it. "See corner," Anna cried. "Here, here." She pointed at a patch of peeling paint above the old table. The first feeling in Miss Diep's chest was that old, tight one. Don't show off. Don't invite more talk. Keep your head low. But then she remembered the dock, that empty second where her hand had lost Anna's, the cord James tied between them, the cave answering back when her child shouted, "Hi!" She got up and found a small roll of tape. "If we put yours up," she told Nye, "we put mine up too, so nobody thinks mothers can't have C's inside them." "You draw?" Nye asked, surprised. "Not well," her mother said, "but I can try." Her drawing was clumsy. Crooked rocks, a little boat, 4 stick figures, one stick hand holding a smaller one. Underneath, she wrote carefully, "The day we saw the sea and stayed together." They taped that one up first, then Nye's sketch, then Anna's wild blue scribble that she insisted was "big water, many waves." The wall didn't look richer, it looked more honest. Later, when the power flickered off and the village slipped into darkness, James lit a candle on the table. The flame shivered over the drawings like water. "Close your eyes," Miss Diep told the girls. "Why?" Anna asked, already half asleep. "So we can listen," her mother said, and not to the neighbors, to the sea. They all closed their eyes, even James. In the quiet, with crickets singing outside, she could hear it. Waves against wood, a far engine, the echo of a small voice in a stone cave. "Can you hear it?" she whispered. "Yes," Nye breathed. "A little." "Big water," Anna murmured. "We small, but together." "That's right," Miss Diep said. She opened her eyes and looked around their tired little room. Chipped bowls, mended clothes, the corner where a thief once took a basket. And now, on the wall, 3 pieces of paper that said, "We were there." As an older woman talking to you now, I think she won something important that night. Not money, just the decision that in her house, joy was not going to be a secret anymore. And in a life like hers, or like ours, that's as brave as any trip to the sea. In this episode, I'm telling you about the day after the Ha Long Bay trip, when Miss Diep comes home to her hill house with salt still on her skin and gossip waiting. On the farm and at the market, neighbors whisper that a woman as poor as she is has no business seeing the sea, hinting that someone from James's old city life must have paid. For a moment, their words make her want to hide the whole trip from her girls. But that night, at the cracked kitchen table, she makes a quiet, stubborn choice. The sea will not be a secret in this house. With James and the children, she tapes their drawings of the water and stone islands on the wall, keeping the memory as a small, bright piece of courage their neighbors cannot steal.